In a world full of diverse personalities, some people uplift us, while others quietly erode our peace. Stoicism, with its timeless wisdom, sheds light on the types of individuals we must steer clear of to preserve our tranquility and virtue. Today, we uncover the people that Stoicism warns us about, those who, if not avoided, can derail your path to inner peace and resilience. Number 1. The manipulator. The manipulator, the puppet master of social interactions. These are the people who always seem to have an agenda. You can't quite put your finger on it at first, but something feels off. They don't just want your company, they want something from you, and they'll twist words, situations, and even your emotions to get it. And before you know it, you're dancing to their tune without even realizing it. What's tricky about manipulators is that they often come across as charming and charismatic. They know how to say the right things at the right time, making you feel special, important, or even indispensable. But underneath that veneer of friendliness is a calculated mind, constantly plotting the next move to gain an advantage. Stoicism teaches us to be wary of such people, not just because they're deceptive, but because they can derail our inner peace. You see, manipulators are experts at creating a sense of obligation. They'll do you a favor, but it's never free. It comes with strings attached, sometimes so fine that you don't notice them until you're all tangled up. Suddenly, you owe them, and they'll cash in on that debt when it's most convenient for them. They prey on your sense of duty, your desire to be fair, to reciprocate kindness. But their version of kindness is a transaction, not a gift. The Stoics would advise us to keep our distance from these types, not out of fear, but out of a desire to maintain our autonomy. It's about preserving your own sense of self, your own values, and your own direction in life. The manipulator wants to steer you, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, but always in a way that benefits them more than it does you. They're not interested in a mutual exchange, they're interested in control. And here's the thing, manipulators are often masters of playing the victim. If you start to see through their games, they might turn the tables, making you feel like you're the one in the wrong. They'll use guilt, pity, and sometimes even anger to keep you in line. It's all part of the act, a way to keep you off balance, questioning yourself instead of their intentions. Stoicism teaches us the value of clear, rational thought, something that manipulators work hard to cloud. By creating confusion, they hope to keep you from seeing the truth. They know that if you can't think straight, you're more likely to fall into their traps. So, how do you protect yourself? The key is mindfulness. Stay aware of your own emotions, your own thoughts. Question why you're doing something. Is it because you truly want to, or because you feel you have to? Manipulators hate transparency because it exposes their schemes. They thrive in the shadows of half-truths and unspoken assumptions. Bringing things into the light, being direct, and asking the right questions can make them uncomfortable. And that discomfort is a sign you're on the right track. In the end, the manipulator is someone who's lost touch with the Stoic virtues of honesty, integrity, and mutual respect. They're driven by a desire for control rather than connection. And that's why they're dangerous, not because they have power, but because they're willing to distort reality to maintain it. So, be cautious, keep your distance, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. After all, your peace of mind is worth more than any favor they could offer. Number 2, the complainer. When it comes to Stoicism, there's a lot of emphasis on finding peace within yourself, maintaining a strong mind, and living according to nature. But, there's one type of person who can really throw a wrench into all that, the complainer. You know the type. The one who always has something to whine about, no matter how small or trivial. They seem to have a knack for turning every little thing into a huge ordeal, dragging down not only themselves but everyone around them. It's exhausting, right? Stoicism pretty much waves a big red flag when it comes to these people, and here's why. First off, let's get one thing straight, Complaining is contagious. You might start off your day feeling good, but spend just a few minutes with a complainer, and suddenly, you're finding things to gripe about too. It's almost like their negative energy seeps into you without you even realizing it. Stoicism teaches us to maintain our own inner tranquility, to be like that rock in the river, unmoved by the turbulent waters around it. But a complainer? They're like a relentless force trying to erode that rock, little by little. And before you know it, you're not just listening to complaints, you're actively participating in them, letting negativity infiltrate your thoughts. Another thing about complaining, it's the complete opposite of what Stoicism stands for. Complaints stem from a place of resistance to reality. The complainer is constantly at odds with how things are, unwilling to accept situations as they are. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often reminded himself, and by extension, us, that we should accept what happens as part of the natural order. But complaining? That's resistance in its purest form. It's like trying to push against a brick wall and getting frustrated that it won't budge. Stoicism, on the other hand, teaches us to focus on what we can control and let go of what we can't. The complainer? They're stuck, endlessly pushing against that wall, going nowhere, fast. And here's the thing, they're not just doing it to themselves. They're doing it to you, too. The more you're around them, the more you'll find yourself dragged into that same futile struggle. It's not just annoying, it's downright harmful to your mental state. Think of your mind as a garden. You want to plant seeds of positivity, resilience, and calm. But a complainer? They're like a weed, choking out the good stuff before it even has a chance to grow. Now, let's talk about time. Your time is valuable. Every moment spent listening to someone's complaints is a moment you'll never get back. Stoicism urges us to use our time wisely, to focus on meaningful pursuits, and to cultivate our inner peace. Complaints do the opposite, they waste time and energy on things that don't matter. What's worse, they leave you feeling drained, as if you've run a marathon, but without any of the benefits. It's a lose-lose situation. So, what's the Stoic way to handle the complainer? It's not about being rude or dismissive. Instead, it's about setting boundaries. Recognize that their endless stream of negativity is their burden to carry, not yours. You don't have to take it on. Distance yourself, if necessary. Protect your mental space like you would your home, allowing only those who bring value, not those who drain it. By doing so, you're not just avoiding negativity, you're actively choosing to cultivate a more peaceful, resilient mind. And that's exactly what Stoicism is all about. In the end, avoiding the complainer isn't just about keeping your sanity intact. It's about living in alignment with Stoic principles, focusing on what truly matters, and not letting unnecessary negativity pull you off course. Because, let's face it, life's too short to spend it mired in complaints, whether they're yours or someone else's. Number 3, the hypocrite. Let's talk about the hypocrite, the kind of person who says one thing but does another. Stoicism warns us about these people for a good reason. Imagine someone who preaches about honesty but then twists the truth whenever it suits them. Or someone who demands loyalty but is the first to break a promise. These folks can be tricky because, on the surface, they often seem genuine, like they've got it all together. But once you scratch beneath that surface, you find a disconnect between their words and actions that's hard to ignore. The problem with hypocrites is that they erode trust. How can you rely on someone whose actions never match their words? It's like trying to build a house on quicksand. No matter how solid things might appear initially, eventually, everything will crumble. Stoicism teaches us the importance of consistency, being true to your principles in all situations. A hypocrite, by definition, lacks this consistency. They live in a state of constant contradiction, and this creates an unstable foundation for any relationship or interaction. Hypocrites often justify their behavior, 2. They might tell themselves, "I'm doing what's best for everyone," or "this is just how things have to be." But deep down, there's an awareness that they're not walking the talk. This internal conflict can lead to frustration, bitterness, and even resentment, not just in them but in those around them. Being around a hypocrite can be exhausting because you're always trying to figure out what's real and what's just for show. What's worse, hypocrites can sometimes be quite charming. They know how to say the right things to get people on their side. They might even believe their own rhetoric, convincing themselves that their double standards are justified. This makes them even more dangerous because they're not just fooling others, they're fooling themselves, too. And once someone starts believing their own lies, it becomes nearly impossible for them to change. But Stoicism encourages us to avoid these people, not just for our own sanity, but for our growth. Associating with hypocrites can pull us into their web of contradictions, where we might start compromising our own values. You might find yourself excusing behavior that, under any other circumstances, you'd condemn. That's the insidious nature of hypocrisy. It's contagious. And let's be real, no one likes being around someone who's constantly saying one thing and doing another. It's confusing, frustrating, and downright disheartening. You might start to doubt your own judgment, questioning whether you're the one with the problem. But in reality, the problem lies with the hypocrite and their inability to live in alignment with their values. In the end, the best approach is to distance yourself from these individuals. Surround yourself with people whose words and actions are in harmony, who practice what they preach. That's the Stoic way, striving for consistency, integrity, and authenticity. Because in a world full of contradictions, being true to yourself and your principles is a rare and valuable trait. Don't let the hypocrite drag you down into their murky waters. Stay clear, stay true, and keep walking your path with purpose. Number 4, the narcissist. The narcissist, the self-proclaimed king or queen of every room they walk into. You know the type. It's like they've got their own spotlight, and they expect everyone else to bask in their glory. At first glance, their confidence can be mistaken for strength, their charm for warmth. But spend enough time around a narcissist, and you'll start to see the cracks in that polished veneer. The thing about narcissists is they're always the main character in their own story, and, by extension, in yours. Every conversation, every interaction somehow circles back to them. They might pretend to listen, might nod and smile at the right moments, but make no mistake, they're just waiting for their turn to speak. And when they do, it's often to tell you how great they are, how much they've accomplished, or how everyone else just doesn't understand them. Stoicism warns us about narcissists not just because they're self-absorbed, but because their need for constant validation can be draining. They crave attention like a plant craves sunlight, and if you're in their orbit, you'll be expected to provide it. The problem is, no matter how much you give, it's never enough. They're a bottomless pit of need, constantly seeking more praise, more admiration, more of everything. But here's the kicker, narcissists aren't just about self-love, they're also about control. They need to be the best, the smartest, the most important person in the room. And if you start to outshine them, if you begin to take some of that attention they feel entitled to, they won't take it kindly. They might belittle you, subtly undermine your achievements, or find ways to shift the focus back to them. In their world, there's only room for one star. The Stoics would advise us to steer clear of these people, not because they're simply annoying, but because they can lead us away from our own path. Narcissists have a way of making everything about themselves, which can pull you into their drama, their needs, their desires. And before you know it, you're spending your energy on them instead of on your own growth. One of the biggest challenges with narcissists is that they're often very good at hiding their true nature, at least in the beginning. They can be incredibly charming, making you feel special just by being in their presence. But this charm is often a tool, a way to draw you in, to make you more likely to feed their ego. It's like they're always performing, always putting on a show, and you're just part of the audience. But remember, Stoicism teaches us to value what is truly important: virtue, wisdom, and inner peace. Narcissists, with their endless need for validation, can disrupt that peace, making it harder to focus on what really matters. They thrive on drama, on conflict, on the highs and lows of emotional roller coasters. And if you're not careful, they'll drag you along for the ride. So what's the solution? It's about setting boundaries, about recognizing when someone's self-interest is starting to infringe on your well-being. It's about choosing to spend your time with people who respect you as an equal, not those who see you as a tool to boost their own ego. The Stoics remind us that our time, our energy, our peace of mind, these are precious resources. We should guard them carefully, especially from those who would take them for their own gain. In the end, the narcissist's world is a small one, limited by their own reflection. And while they might try to pull you into it, you have the power to step back, to focus on your own journey. It's your life, after all, not theirs. So let them bask in their own glory while you quietly, calmly, walk your own path. Number 5, the pessimist. The pessimist, the one who always seems to have a cloud hanging over their head, raining on everyone's parade. You know the type. No matter what you say or do, they'll find a way to see the worst in it. Suggest a new idea, and they'll tell you why it'll never work. Mention something good that happened, and they'll point out all the ways it could go wrong. It's like they're on a mission to find the dark side of every silver lining. Pessimists are the ultimate buzzkills. They have this uncanny ability to suck the joy out of even the most positive situations. And the tricky part is, they often think they're just being realistic. They'll say they're just looking out for you, trying to prepare you for the worst, but in reality, they're projecting their own fears and anxieties onto you. Stoicism warns us about these folks because they can drag us down if we're not careful. Now, let's be clear, Stoicism isn't about wearing rose-colored glasses and pretending everything is sunshine and rainbows. It's about seeing the world as it is, but also maintaining a sense of calm and resilience in the face of whatever comes our way. Pessimists, on the other hand, tend to focus on what might go wrong, often to the exclusion of what might go right. They get so caught up in potential pitfalls that they miss out on the beauty of the present moment. What makes pessimists particularly challenging is their persistence. They're like a dripping faucet, slowly, steadily, wearing you down with their constant negativity. Spend enough time around them, and you might start to see the world through their dreary lens. Their doubts can become your doubts, their fears your fears. And before you know it, you're stuck in the same rut, unable to move forward because all you can see are the obstacles in your path. Stoicism teaches us to guard our minds against this kind of influence. It's not about ignoring the challenges or pretending everything's perfect, but about keeping a balanced perspective. The pessimist wants you to join them in their world of what-ifs and it'll never works. But Stoicism reminds us that while we should prepare for difficulties, we shouldn't let them define our outlook on life. One of the most insidious things about pessimism is that it can be contagious. It's easy to get caught up in someone else's negative energy, especially if there's someone close to you. But just because someone else sees the glass as half empty doesn't mean you have to. You have the power to choose your own perspective, to focus on what's within your control, and to let go of the rest. So, what do you do when you're dealing with a pessimist? First, recognize what's happening. Understand that their negative outlook is more about them than it is about you or the situation at hand. Second, set boundaries. You don't have to engage in every gloomy conversation or entertain every worst-case scenario they throw your way. And finally, keep your own mindset strong. Surround yourself with positivity, with people who inspire and uplift you, and with practices that reinforce your own sense of inner peace. In the end, the pessimist's world is a small one, limited by their own fears and doubts. But you don't have to live there. Stoicism teaches us to see beyond the shadows, to find the light even in difficult times, and to keep moving forward, no matter what. So, while the pessimist may try to pull you down, you can choose to rise above, staying grounded in your own truth and focused on what truly matters. Number 6, the gossiper. Let's talk about the gossiper, the person who always has the latest scoop, the inside story, the lowdown on everyone else's business. They come to you with that glint in their eye, like they're offering you a precious gift. Did you hear what so-and-so did? They whisper, pulling you into their web of whispers and secrets. It's tempting, right? We all have that curiosity, that little itch to know what's going on behind the scenes. But here's the thing, gossip is like junk food for the mind. It's addictive, but it leaves you feeling empty afterward. Gossipers thrive on drama. They're the unofficial narrators of everyone's lives, spinning stories, adding twists, and sometimes even creating entire plots out of thin air. They love to be in the know and even more so to be the ones who share the news. But Stoicism warns us about these people because, while gossip might seem harmless or even fun at first, it can be toxic. It pulls you away from your own focus, your own goals, and plants seeds of negativity in your mind. The problem with gossip is that it's rarely about the truth. It's about perception, about shaping the way others see someone, usually in a negative light. Gossipers aren't just passing on information, they're often passing on judgment. And once you get sucked into that world, it's hard to see clearly. You start to view people not for who they are, but for who the gossiper says they are. It's like putting on a pair of glasses with someone else's prescription. You're seeing things, but they're out of focus. Stoicism teaches us to rise above this. It reminds us to be wary of those who spend more time talking about others than focusing on their own lives. Gossipers are often trying to distract themselves from their own issues, using other people's lives as a smokescreen. But just because they're looking outward doesn't mean you have to join them. You have the choice to steer clear of those conversations, to keep your thoughts and words focused on what truly matters. Another thing about gossipers? They're not loyal. Today, they're talking to you about someone else. Tomorrow, they might be talking to someone else about you. It's a cycle that never ends, and no one is safe from their wandering tongue. Stoicism advises us to avoid getting caught in that cycle. Why waste your energy on tearing others down when you could be building yourself up? Gossip also erodes trust. Once you engage in it, you're participating in a behavior that, at its core, is about betrayal. The person being talked about isn't there to defend themselves, to give their side of the story. And by listening, by engaging, you're complicit in that betrayal. Stoicism values honesty, integrity, and respect, all things that gossip undermines. So, what's the Stoic approach? It's simple but powerful. Don't engage. Change the subject, steer the conversation towards something more meaningful, or if that doesn't work, walk away. You don't have to be part of that narrative. Your time and energy are too valuable to be wasted on something as trivial and damaging as gossip. In the end, gossipers may think they hold power with their stories, but the real power lies in choosing not to participate. By staying above the fray, by focusing on your own path, you protect your peace of mind and maintain your integrity. And that's something no amount of juicy gossip can ever replace. Number 7, the drama seeker. So, the drama seeker, someone who seems to live for the chaos, the conflict, and the emotional roller coaster of life. It's like they're addicted to the highs and lows, and they'll do whatever it takes to stir the pot. You know the type, they're the ones who somehow manage to turn the smallest disagreement into a full-blown saga. They're always involved in some kind of turmoil, and if there isn't any around, they'll create it. Stoicism gives us a clear warning: stay away from these people. Not just because they're exhausting, but because they can drag you into their whirlwind, pulling you off balance and away from your path. Drama seekers thrive on attention. They want to be at the center of everything, the main character in the drama they've scripted. And they don't care who gets caught in the crossfire, as long as they get their fix of excitement. They're like emotional adrenaline junkies, constantly seeking that next rush, that next confrontation. And they're good at pulling you in, too. They know how to push buttons, how to twist situations, how to make you feel like you need to take sides or get involved. But here's the thing, it's all a distraction. Drama seekers aren't interested in resolution or peace, they're interested in the thrill of the conflict. They don't want things to settle down, they want the storm to keep raging. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself caught up in it, spending your time and energy on things that don't matter. Stoicism teaches us to guard our peace of mind, to focus on what's within our control, and to let go of the rest. Drama seekers? They want the opposite. They want you embroiled in the mess, tangled up in the drama. What's particularly insidious about drama seekers is how they mask their intentions. They might come across as passionate, as someone who just cares a lot. They might present themselves as victims of circumstance, always finding themselves in the middle of things. But in reality, they're often the ones pulling the strings, setting the stage for the next act of chaos. And the more you engage with them, the more you'll find yourself getting dragged into situations that have nothing to do with you. The Stoic response to drama seekers is clear: disengage. Don't feed into the chaos. Don't get sucked into the whirlwind of emotions they create. Maintain your focus, your calm, your sense of purpose. Drama seekers lose their power when they can't pull others into their games. Without an audience, without participants, their drama loses its sting. It's also important to recognize that drama seekers are often dealing with their own inner turmoil. They might not even realize that they're creating chaos because they don't know how to live without it. But that doesn't mean you need to be a part of their storm. Stoicism teaches us to have compassion, yes, but also to protect our own peace. You can care about someone without getting involved in their drama. You can offer support without getting pulled into their emotional maelstrom. So, next time you encounter a drama seeker, take a step back. Observe, but don't engage. Let them spin their web of chaos without getting caught in it. Your peace of mind, your focus, your path, they're worth more than any fleeting thrill that drama can offer. And in the end, staying true to your own values, your own calm, is the best way to navigate through the storms that others might try to create. Number 8. The passive-aggressive. The passive-aggressive type, they're a tricky bunch. On the surface, they might seem calm, even agreeable, but underneath, there's a simmering tension that's just waiting to bubble up. Instead of being direct and straightforward, they choose to express their frustrations in subtle, often confusing ways. Stoicism warns us about these individuals for good reason. They can be incredibly draining, not just because of the confusion they create, but because their behavior runs completely counter to the Stoic ideal of clear, honest communication. Let's start with the basics. Stoicism teaches us to value directness and clarity in our interactions. It's all about being straightforward, saying what you mean and meaning what you say. But passive-aggressive people? They do the exact opposite. They say one thing while implying another, leaving you to piece together what they're really feeling. It's like trying to solve a puzzle without all the pieces. You're left guessing, wondering if you've done something wrong, or if there's something more lurking beneath the surface. This ambiguity creates unnecessary tension and uncertainty, both of which are the antithesis of the calm, rational mindset that Stoicism promoted. Another issue with the passive-aggressive type is that they're often driven by a fear of confrontation. Rather than addressing issues head-on, they skirt around them, using indirect jabs, sarcasm, or subtle digs to express their displeasure. This approach doesn't resolve conflicts, it just festers them. And in a Stoic's world, unresolved conflict is like carrying around a heavy burden. It weighs you down, distracts you, and takes up valuable mental space that could be better used for something productive or meaningful. In short, it's a waste of energy. What's more, passive-aggressive behavior can be incredibly manipulative. They might agree to something with a smile, only to sabotage it later with deliberate forgetfulness or half-hearted effort. This kind of behavior not only erodes trust but also creates an environment of suspicion and doubt. And trust? It's a cornerstone of any healthy relationship or interaction. Stoicism values integrity and honesty above all. When you're dealing with someone who says one thing and does another, it's hard to maintain any kind of genuine connection. You're left constantly on edge, wondering when the next subtle act of sabotage will occur. Now, let's talk about the impact on your own peace of mind. Being around a passive-aggressive person can leave you feeling frustrated, confused, and even angry. It's like being stuck in a mental maze, trying to figure out what's really going on. This kind of mental clutter is exactly what Stoicism advises against. The Stoic ideal is to maintain a clear, focused mind, free from unnecessary distractions. But with passive aggressiveness in the mix, your thoughts can become muddled, and your emotions stirred up, all of which detracts from your inner tranquility. So, what's the Stoic approach to dealing with the passive-aggressive? It's all about setting boundaries. Recognize that their behavior is a reflection of their own internal struggles, not a reflection of you. Don't get drawn into their games of indirect communication. Instead, be clear and direct in your own interactions. If they refuse to meet you halfway, it might be time to distance yourself. After all, your peace of mind is far too valuable to be compromised by someone else's inability to communicate openly. In the end, avoiding the passive-aggressive isn't just about dodging frustration or confusion. It's about protecting your own mental space, ensuring that your interactions are honest and direct, and staying true to the Stoic principles of clarity, integrity, and peace. Because at the end of the day, life's too short to be spent deciphering mixed messages and hidden agendas. Number 9. The fearmonger. The fearmonger. We've all encountered one at some point. You know, the person who always seems to have a worst-case scenario ready at the tip of their tongue. The one who, no matter what the situation, will find a way to inject a good dose of doom and gloom. Stoicism gives us a heads up about these folks, and for good reason. They can seriously mess with your headspace if you're not careful. Let's break it down. Stoicism is all about cultivating a calm, rational mind. It's about understanding that while we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond. But here's the thing, fearmongers thrive on pushing the idea that everything is out of control. They're like walking, talking anxiety machines, always ready to tell you why things are about to go horribly wrong. Their favorite word? What if? What if the economy crashes? What if you lose your job? What if this? What if that? Before you know it, they've got you spiraling into a pit of worry over things that might never even happen. The problem with the fearmonger is that they tap into a very primal part of our brain, the part that's wired for survival, always on the lookout for threats. In the Stoic worldview, this kind of constant fear is not just unhelpful, it's downright destructive. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic thinkers, often reminded himself to stay grounded in the present, to focus on what is real and true, not on what might happen. But the fearmonger? They pull you out of the present and plant you squarely in a future filled with shadows and phantoms. And the more time you spend worrying about those shadows, the less time you have to actually live your life. Another issue with fearmongers is that they're incredibly draining. Their constant barrage of negativity can leave you feeling exhausted, both mentally and emotionally. It's like being around a perpetual dark cloud. No matter how sunny the day might be, they'll find that one little patch of gray and magnify it until it covers the whole sky. And the worst part? Fearmongers rarely offer solutions. They're not interested in finding ways to make things better. they're just focused on amplifying the fear. And that's where Stoicism really draws the line. Stoicism teaches us to be proactive, to take control of what we can, and to let go of what we can't. Fearmongers, on the other hand, are all about feeding helplessness, making you feel like the world is this big, scary place where you have no agency. So, how do you deal with the fearmonger? First, recognize their behavior for what it is, an attempt to drag you into their world of endless worry. Then, set boundaries. You don't have to absorb their fear. You can listen, sure, but you don't have to internalize it. Keep your focus on what you can control, on staying grounded in the present. And if they keep pushing their fear agenda, it might be time to distance yourself. After all, your peace of mind is worth protecting. In the end, avoiding the fearmonger is about more than just dodging a constant stream of negativity. It's about preserving your own mental clarity, staying true to the Stoic principles of calm, rational thought, and refusing to let someone else's fears dictate your life. Life's uncertain, sure, but that's no reason to live in fear. Stoicism teaches us to face uncertainty with courage, not with endless what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. And that's a lesson worth holding on to, no matter how loud the fearmonger's voice might be. Number 10. The Eternal Procrastinator. The Eternal Procrastinator. We've all known one, or maybe, at times, we've been one. This is the person who always has grand plans, big dreams, and endless to-do lists, but somehow, nothing ever gets done. There's always tomorrow, right? Well, Stoicism throws up a big red flag when it comes to these folks, and for a good reason. Their constant delays can be infectious, and before you know it, their habit of putting things off might just rub off on you. Let's dive into why the eternal procrastinator is someone you want to avoid, or at least, be cautious around. Stoicism is all about action, about living in the present and seizing the moment. Marcus Aurelius, one of the big names in Stoicism, reminded himself daily that life is short, and we should make the most of every moment. But the procrastinator? They live as if they've got all the time in the world. They'll tell you, "I'll do it tomorrow," or "I'm just waiting for the right time." But here's the kicker, tomorrow never comes. The right time is always just out of reach. And while they're busy waiting for that perfect moment, life is passing them by. Now, the problem isn't just that they're not getting things done. It's that their procrastination can start to affect you too. Spend enough time around a procrastinator, and you might find yourself adopting that same mindset. You might start thinking, well, if they can wait, why can't I? And suddenly, tasks that should be tackled today get pushed to tomorrow, then the next day, and so on. It's a slippery slope, and Stoicism warns us against it for a reason. The more you put things off, the more you're missing out on living fully and intentionally. Another issue with the eternal procrastinator is that they're often full of excuses. They'll tell you they're waiting for inspiration, or that they work better under pressure. But let's be real, these are just ways to avoid facing the fact that they're not taking action. Stoicism teaches us to be honest with ourselves, to take responsibility for our own lives and choices. The procrastinator, though, they're all about deflecting that responsibility. And that's not just frustrating, it can be downright toxic if you're trying to stay focused and productive in your own life. What's more, procrastination often breeds regret. The procrastinator might not feel it now, but eventually, they'll look back and realize how much time they wasted, how many opportunities they let slip through their fingers. And Stoicism? It's all about living without regret, about making the most of each day so that, at the end of it all, you can look back and know that you gave it your all. Hanging around with someone who constantly puts things off can lead you down that same path of missed chances and what-ifs. So, how do you deal with the eternal procrastinator? It's not about cutting them off completely, but more about being aware of their influence. Encourage them to take action, sure, but don't let their delays drag you down. Keep your own priorities in check, and remember that the best time to act is now, not later. If their procrastination starts to impact your own progress, it might be time to create some distance. After all, your time is precious, and once it's gone, you don't get it back. In the end, avoiding the eternal procrastinator is about more than just dodging their habit of delay. It's about staying true to the Stoic principles of action, responsibility, and living in the present. Because life isn't something to be put off, it's happening right now. And that's something worth embracing every single day. Number 11, the chronic overthinker. Let's talk about the chronic overthinker. You know the type, the one who can turn the simplest decision into a complex mental maze. Should I do this? What if that happens? But then again, maybe I should wait. And before you know it, they're tangled up in a web of their own thoughts, paralyzed by possibilities that might not even matter. Stoicism waves a big caution flag when it comes to these folks, and it's not hard to see why. Here's the thing about overthinking, it's exhausting. Not just for the person doing it, but for anyone around them. It's like watching someone endlessly pace back and forth, trying to decide which way to go, but never actually moving. Stoicism, on the other hand, is all about simplicity and clarity. It's about cutting through the noise and focusing on what's real, what's tangible. But the chronic overthinker? They live in the land of what-ifs and maybes, a place where nothing is ever certain, and everything is up for endless debate. Now, don't get me wrong, thinking things through is important. We're not talking about being reckless here. But there's a difference between careful consideration and getting stuck in analysis paralysis. The chronic overthinker tends to cross that line all the time. Instead of making a decision and moving forward, they get trapped in a loop, endlessly revisiting the same thoughts, the same concerns, without ever reaching a conclusion. And the problem with that? It stops progress dead in its tracks. Stoicism teaches us to take action, to focus on what we can control and let go of the rest. But overthinking? It's the enemy of action. It's like trying to drive with the parking brake on, you're not going anywhere fast. Another issue with chronic overthinkers is that they can be contagious. Spend enough time around one, and you might find yourself starting to question everything too. Should you really make that decision? What if you're overlooking something? Maybe you should think it over just a little bit more. And suddenly, you're caught in the same trap, overanalyzing every little detail instead of just getting on with it. Stoicism is about living in the present, making decisions with the information you have, and accepting that uncertainty is a part of life. Overthinkers, though, they're constantly trying to eliminate uncertainty, which is a fool's errand if there ever was one. And let's be honest, overthinking is stressful. The chronic overthinker is often riddled with anxiety, always worrying about the potential outcomes of every choice. This kind of stress isn't just bad for them, it's bad for you too, especially if you're trying to maintain a stoic mindset. Stoicism teaches us to cultivate inner peace, to remain calm in the face of life's challenges. But when you're constantly around someone who's always stressed out because they're stuck in their head, it can be tough to keep that calm intact. So, how do you handle the chronic overthinker? First, recognize what's happening. Understand that their overthinking is more about their own anxieties than it is about reality. Encourage them to simplify, to focus on what's within their control. But don't get sucked into their mental spiral. Keep your own decisions clear and direct, and if their overthinking starts to drag you down, it might be time to step back a bit. After all, your peace of mind is too valuable to let it get tangled up in someone else's endless thoughts. In the end, avoiding the chronic overthinker is about more than just sidestepping stress. It's about staying true to Stoic principles, focusing on the present, taking action, and not letting unnecessary doubts cloud your judgment. Life is too short to spend it caught in an endless loop of overthinking. So make your decisions, trust yourself, and move forward with confidence. Because in the end, it's action that leads to growth, not endless contemplation. Number 12, the emotional leech. Let's dive into the emotional leech, a person who seems to thrive on draining others' energy. Stoicism warns us about this type, and for good reason. These individuals are often masters at making everything about themselves, pulling you into their emotional whirlpool until you're left feeling depleted, exhausted, and sometimes even guilty for wanting to escape. They cling to your emotional reserves like they're the only thing keeping them afloat, but in reality, they're dragging you down with them. You might start out feeling compassionate, wanting to help. Maybe you lend an ear, offer some advice, or just be there for them. But with an emotional leech, it's never enough. No matter how much you give, they always need more. They feed on your empathy, but instead of finding balance, they create an imbalance, where their emotional needs overshadow everything else. Stoicism teaches us to maintain our inner peace, but how can you do that when someone is constantly tugging at your emotional strings? What makes emotional leeches particularly tricky is their subtlety. They often don't even realize what they're doing. They're not necessarily bad people, but their constant need for attention, validation, or support can become overwhelming. It's like trying to fill a bottomless pit. No matter how much energy you pour in, it never feels like enough. And that's the real danger. They can leave you feeling empty while they continue on, seemingly unaware of the toll they're taking on you. Stoicism advises us to be mindful of our energy, to protect our inner tranquility. Engaging with an emotional leech disrupts that tranquility. Instead of focusing on your own growth, your energy is diverted to managing someone else's emotional landscape. Over time, this can lead to resentment, fatigue, and a sense of being used. You might start questioning your own worth, wondering if you're being selfish for wanting to distance yourself. But here's the truth, it's not selfish to protect your emotional well-being. It's necessary. Another thing to watch out for is how emotional leeches can make you feel responsible for their happiness. They might not say it outright, but their actions, their constant need for reassurance, can make you feel like it's your job to keep them afloat. But Stoicism teaches us that each person is responsible for their own emotions. You can't control how someone else feels, nor should you have to. The emotional leech, however, blurs these lines, making it hard to see where their emotions end and yours begin. So, what's the best way to deal with an emotional leech? Boundaries. Clear, firm, and consistent boundaries. It might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to being the go-to person for emotional support. But without boundaries, you risk losing yourself in someone else's emotional chaos. Stoicism encourages us to cultivate inner strength, to be resilient in the face of challenges. Part of that resilience is knowing when to step back, when to protect your energy, and when to say, enough. In the end, it's about balance. You can be compassionate, supportive, and kind without sacrificing your own peace of mind. Don't let the emotional leech siphon away your energy. Instead, focus on building relationships that are mutually supportive, where there's a give and take that leaves both parties feeling fulfilled. That's the Stoic way, maintaining your equilibrium, no matter what emotional storms may come your way. Stay grounded, stay centered, and don't be afraid to distance yourself from those who disrupt your inner peace. Number 13, the envious. Let's dig into the envious, a type of person who Stoicism strongly advises us to avoid. Envy is a sneaky, corrosive emotion that doesn't just eat away at the person feeling it, it can also gnaw at anyone in their orbit. People who are envious rarely celebrate the success of others. Instead, they dwell in a constant state of comparison, always measuring themselves against what others have, what others do, or who others are. It's exhausting to be around, and even worse, it's toxic. The thing about envious people is that they can't genuinely be happy for you. When something good happens in your life, They don't see it as a reason to celebrate, they see it as a reminder of what they lack. And that's where things get tricky. They might smile and nod, say all the right things, but underneath, there's this simmering resentment, this frustration that you have something they don't. Stoicism teaches us to be content with what we have, to focus on our own path, but the envious person does the opposite. They're perpetually stuck in the mindset that the grass is greener on the other side. What makes envy particularly insidious is that it often masquerades as something else. It might come across as criticism, a backhanded compliment, or even as concern. "Oh, I'm just worried you're taking on too much," they might say, but what they're really thinking is, "Why do you get to succeed when I'm struggling?" Stoicism calls for honesty and integrity, but envy distorts both. It warps perception, turning every achievement into a competition, every success into a slight. Now, you might think that it's harmless, that their envy is their problem, not yours. But here's where Stoicism offers a different perspective. Envy is like a weed. If you let it grow unchecked, it spreads. It can poison relationships, create unnecessary tension, and even cause you to question your own accomplishments. When someone is constantly comparing themselves to you, it's easy to get pulled into that game, to start doubting yourself or feeling guilty for your successes. And that's the last thing you want, to let someone else's insecurity make you second-guess your worth. So, what's the Stoic approach to dealing with the envious? Distance. Not in a cold or callous way, but in a protective, self-preserving way. It's about recognizing that you can't control how others feel or what they choose to focus on, but you can control your own environment. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, who genuinely celebrate your victories, and who don't see your success as a reflection of their shortcomings. Stoicism isn't about isolating yourself, but it is about being mindful of the company you keep. At the end of the day, the envious person is trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. They're constantly chasing something external to fill an internal void. But you don't have to be dragged into that cycle. Stay grounded, stay focused on your own journey, and don't let someone else's envy cast a shadow over your light. Stoicism teaches us to find contentment within ourselves, to cultivate a sense of inner peace that isn't swayed by the opinions or emotions of others. By keeping your distance from the envious, you're protecting that peace, ensuring that your path remains clear and your mind remains unclouded. Number 14, the unreliable. Let's chat about the unreliable, the ones who Stoicism strongly suggests we should steer clear of. Picture this, you've made plans, you're counting on someone, and then, poof, they disappear, leaving you hanging. It's frustrating, right? That's the thing with unreliable people, they're all talk, no action. They make promises, but when it's time to deliver, they vanish like a ghost, leaving you to pick up the pieces. Now, the tricky part with unreliable folks is that they often come across as well-meaning. They don't usually intend to let you down, but the result is the same. You're left scrambling, trying to figure out what went wrong, and more importantly, why you trusted them in the first place. Stoicism teaches us to value our time and energy, to be discerning about where we invest them. But when you're dealing with someone who's unreliable, it's like throwing those precious resources into a black hole. And here's where it gets even messier. Unreliability breeds uncertainty. It creates this constant state of limbo, where you're never quite sure if you can count on someone or if you'll be left holding the bag again. It's exhausting. You start second-guessing yourself, questioning whether you're asking too much or if you're being too demanding. But let's be real, reliability isn't a high bar. It's the basic expectation that people will do what they say they're going to do. What's worse is that unreliable people often have a knack for making excuses. They'll have a reason, or 5, for why they couldn't follow through. And sometimes, those reasons might even sound valid. But here's the Stoic truth, reasons don't matter if the outcome is the same. If you can't rely on someone, it doesn't really matter why, they're still unreliable, and that's still a problem. Stoicism encourages us to seek stability, to cultivate relationships that are grounded in trust and mutual respect. But you can't have that with someone who's unreliable. Trust is built on consistency, on knowing that when someone says they'll do something, they'll actually do it. When that consistency is missing, the whole foundation of the relationship starts to crumble. It's like building a house on sand. No matter how strong the structure is, it's eventually going to collapse. So, how do you deal with unreliable people? It might sound harsh, but sometimes the best move is to minimize their impact on your life. That doesn't mean cutting them off completely, unless you need to, but it does mean adjusting your expectations. Don't put yourself in a position where you're relying on someone who's already shown you they can't be counted on. Protect your peace, your time, your energy. And remember, Stoicism isn't about being cold or detached. It's about being wise. It's about recognizing patterns in people's behavior and making choices that align with your values. If someone has a track record of letting you down, it's okay to step back and protect yourself. Surround yourself with people who are dependable, who value your trust, and who follow through on their commitments. Because in the end, reliability isn't just about showing up, it's about showing up consistently. And that consistency is what builds strong, lasting relationships, the kind that Stoicism encourages us to cultivate. So, keep your circle tight, your standards high, and don't waste your time on those who can't be bothered to keep their word. Number 15, the ingrate. Let's talk about the ingrate, the person who Stoicism advises us to avoid like the plague. You know the type, the one who never says thank you, who takes and takes but never acknowledges what's given. Ingrates are those who seem to think the world owes them something, and no matter how much they receive, it's never enough. Stoicism teaches us the value of gratitude, of recognizing and appreciating the good in our lives, but ingrates operate on a completely different frequency. The thing about ingrates is that they have this uncanny ability to make you feel like nothing you do is ever enough. You go out of your way to help, to support, to give, and what do you get in return? Silence. Or worse, complaints. They'll find something wrong with even the most generous of gestures. Oh, you got me this? But I wanted that. It's draining. It's demoralizing. And it's a huge red flag that this is someone you might need to distance yourself from. Stoicism isn't just about enduring life's hardships with grace, it's also about cultivating an attitude of appreciation, about seeing the value in even the smallest things. But an ingrate turns that on its head. They're like a bottomless pit of dissatisfaction, always wanting more, never content with what they have. And that mindset? It's contagious. Spend enough time around someone like that, and you might start questioning whether what you have is really enough, whether you should be wanting more, expecting more, demanding more. What's even more frustrating is that ingrates often don't see themselves as the problem. In their mind, they're just being honest, just expressing their needs. But there's a fine line between being honest and being ungrateful. And once that line is crossed, it's hard to come back from it. Stoicism teaches us to be content, to find peace within ourselves, but ingrates disrupt that peace. They make you feel like you're constantly on trial, like no matter what you do, it's never going to measure up. The best way to handle an ingrate? Set boundaries. And be firm about them. It's not about being harsh or unkind, it's about protecting your own well-being. Stoicism reminds us that we can't control how others act, but we can control how we respond. If someone constantly fails to appreciate what you do, it's okay to take a step back. You don't have to keep pouring your energy into a relationship that's a one-way street. And here's the thing, gratitude is a two-way street. It's not just about saying thank you, it's about recognizing and valuing the effort someone else has made. When that recognition is missing, it's a sign that the relationship is out of balance. Stoicism is all about balance, about maintaining harmony in our lives. An ingrate throws that harmony off kilter, leaving you feeling resentful, used, and unappreciated. So, keep your distance from the ingrate. Focus on surrounding yourself with people who appreciate what you bring to the table, who see the value in your contributions, no matter how big or small. Life's too short to waste on those who can't see the good in what they've got. Stoicism encourages us to cultivate relationships that uplift, not drain, and to be grateful for those who walk this path with us. Let the ingrates go, they're not worth the energy. And there you have it, 15 types of people Stoicism warns us about. Remember, these aren't just traits to watch out for in others, they're also pitfalls we need to avoid within ourselves. As you navigate through life, staying mindful of these behaviors can help you cultivate a more peaceful and fulfilling existence. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content on Stoicism and personal growth. And if you have any thoughts or experiences to share, drop them in the comments below, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep striving for virtue and living with intention. Stay strong, stay stoic.